Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May Oldham County Board of Adjustments and Appeals. My name's Larry Otterback. It's 9 o'clock, and we are now in session. Welcome, Tom. We have a new member with us this morning, Tom Clemens. And Mike, if I can get you to read the cases for us this morning. Yes. So, well, let's go ahead and do that. Let's swear staff in.
Tell me, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay, so we have 3 cases with us this morning. The order for all 3 cases are going to be the same. Here in a minute, Mike's going to read the case, each case individually. We're going to bring staff forward to the podium. They're going to read the staff report or give us a staff report. There will be a round of questioning by the board members to staff. When we're done with that, staff's going to take a seat. I'm going to call you, the applicant, forward. You're going to come forward, raise your right hand, be sworn in, state your name and address, and justify your project. You'll have 20 minutes to do so. The clock is on the wall. There'll be a round of questioning by us to you, the applicant, and when we're done with those questions, you may take a seat, and I'll call forward anybody that wishes to speak in favor of the applicant, and then those opposed. It'll be the same procedure for both. You'll come forward, raise your right hand, be sworn in, state your name and address, and tell us why you're in favor or why you're opposed. Same thing, there will be a round of questioning by board members to you, those in favor and those opposed. When we're done, you may take a seat. The applicant will have time for a rebuttal, then final statements, and then any questioning by board members to anybody in the audience. And when we're done with that, I'm going to close the floor for general discussion, or close the floor for hearing, open it up for general discussion among the board members. And when we're done, I'll take an up and down vote. Cell phones, please make sure they're off or on vibrate. If you need to use them, please excuse yourself from the courtroom. Just make sure they're off when you come back in. Board members, applies to you as well. Please make sure your mics are on. And with that, let's get going. Mike, you want to read the first case?
All right, thank you. Docket OC 19-013. An application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for private event space on property located at 7980 Old Hannah Road, Crestwood.
All right, good morning, Amy Alvey, Assistant Director for Oldham County Plating and Development Services. As Mr. Riley stated, this is an application requesting a conditional use permit to operate a private event space on property located at 7980 Old Hannah Road in Crestwood. Just clarification, it's not located within the city limits of Crestwood, that is just their mailing address. This is on the outskirts right near the Oldham-Shelby County line. The property is zoned CO1 Conservation and AG1 Agricultural and is approximately 271 acres. There have been no prior actions before the Oldham County Board of Adjustments regarding this property. So this is an aerial of the property. You'll see the tract of land that is in question is outlined in red. The blue line is the approximate location of the county line. So this is Oldham County, this is Shelby County here, and then circled in yellow is the subject building. This just shows the zoning. So you've got AG1 in the lighter green, the brighter green is CO1 Conservation. And then this just shows existing drives and structures on the property. And this is an older aerial, so the road actually continues on and there's other structures back there, but this is all that currently shows up on our mapping. This is the entrance into the farm from Old Hannah Road. You'll see that it is a paved driveway. This is the north view, so this is at the farm entrance looking across the street. This is the west view going back towards Oldham County and Ballersville area. This is the east view going towards Shelby County. So again, the applicant is requesting a conditional use to operate a private event space out of an existing structure located on the 271 acres. The applicant currently runs a beef cattle farm and has rented the structure out for 7 weddings in 2018, unaware that a conditional use permit was required. By having the event space, it allows the applicant the opportunity to continue contributing to the economic base and expand the support by diversifying its operations by supplementing the farm's operating budget, and that comes from the applicant's justification statement. So this is the event barn. These are a couple of pictures of the event space when it was in use. Couple more pictures. This is the driveway leading past the event barn. You can see all of this is paved parking area here, and then there's paved parking area on the other side there. This is a view standing at the event barn, we'll say looking east. So this is into their property there. The barn is approximately 910 feet at its closest point to Old Hannah Road. And again, the drive-in parking is of non-dusting material. So this is a zoomed-in version of the aerial. So you'll see the barn there circled in yellow, and at its closest point, it's 910 feet from Old Hannah Road. And this is the view standing in front of the barn looking towards Old Hannah Road. So Old Hannah Road runs through here. You can't see it. The existing building is 4,800 square feet. The applicant is proposing a 2,400 square foot addition that will be used for storage, loading area, and a warming kitchen. So this is highlighted in blue is the existing building, and then highlighted in green is the new storage area, covered loading area, and then a warming kitchen. And that's what facilitated this process to come before you today. They came in to apply for a building permit. So this is the rear of the barn. This is location of the proposed addition. It'll be in this area here. This is the area behind the event barn. Staff has proposed regulations regarding agritourism based off the recent passing of House Bill 360, and it will be added to the zoning ordinance once approved by legislative bodies. We are taking this to the Planning Commission in May and hopefully to the legislative bodies in June and July. This is the proposed language. It gives a definition of agritourism activity. If you look at item B, it says allows or invites participants to view or participate in activities for recreational, entertainment, or educational purposes. Qualifying activities may include, but not limited to, weddings and accelerate events. So again, this was these definitions were adopted or defined by the state under House Bill 360. So staff has taken this information to our study review committee meeting, which is a subcommittee of the Planning Commission, and we have developed regulations. So in the future, if someone wanted to do the same process, they still would come before this board for a conditional use permit. The one thing that would change is that the part of the regulation that everyone asks for a waiver now, except this applicant, is the non-dusting for the driveway and the parking area. So you'll see the last bullet point here. It says shall be exempt from section 280-150 parking lot layout and design, item 2 markings, and item 3 surfacing and maintenance. So that keeps the rural character of the property by allowing them to have either a gravel road and have field parking at that point. But there are minimum parking requirements that they have to show on a plan, and setback requirements and minimum lot sizes. But again, this has not been adopted, but this is what hopefully will be adopted within the next 60 days. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a private event space on 271 acres. And that is all that I have, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
If we were to approve this and these additional regulations go into place at later point, are any of our actions today have any bearing on that, or will they apply? Do we have to do anything special to make sure?
No, because they would still, even the proposed regulations, they'd still come before this board, so you can still limit, hours of operation or lighting or days or number of events or anything of that nature. It doesn't take any of that away, so no, it shouldn't have any bearing on any future decisions.
Perfect, thank you.
Just to make sure I'm correct on this, the entire, the barn itself, the entrance to the barn, all of, everything pertinent to this case is in Oldham County?
Correct.
Any other questions for Amy?
And you should have received an email from me of a letter of support by an adjoining property owner.
We had discussed prior about whether we would put that on the screen and those kind of things.
Jan, do you have it?
I have it in my. Let me get my phone. So this is the letter that was signed by Robert and Angela Klingenfuss, which are adjoining property owners. It says this letter is in response to a conditional use permit application for private events on property located at 7980 Hannah Road, Crestwood, Kentucky, docket OC 19-013. Taylor Creek has been a very good neighbor, keeping his property in excellent condition. His farm helps preserve the rural culture of the county. I believe the events held here will showcase Oldham County's rural culture. There have been events held at 7980 Hannah Road in the past, and they have caused no problems. If Mr. Taylor continues operating as in the past, I would support approval of the conditional use permit for these events.
Amy, just let me a question. What's the relationship between Hannah Road and Old Hannah
Is your
Road?
mic on?
You gotta get closer.
Yeah,
to the-
yeah, we can't.
You gotta get closer to the mic.
Yeah. I can't hear you, and I'm standing right here. So
Just tell me what the relationship between Hannah Road and Old Hannah Road is, please.
it's the same road. It depends on what map you look at. Some maps call it Old Hannah Road. Some call it Hannah Road.
At 1315?
I'm not sure of the number. I believe it is 1315.
So it's the same road.
Yes. Yeah, it's the same road.
It's kind of confusing when you're using, Hannah Road on some of the application and Old Hannah Road on the rest of it.
Right.
Okay, I know where we are now.
Yeah.
Go back to the slide that shows me the 900 and some odd feet from Old Hannah Road. There you go, good enough. Okay. All right, any other questions for Amy? Okay, thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
If we can have the applicant come forward. Morning.
Morning.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address.
Tanner Nichols, 400 West Market, Louisville, Kentucky. Here on behalf of the applicant, and don't really have a lot to say. We obviously are supportive of the staff's report, and as you can see from the pictures, it kind of tells the story that you can understand why people would like to have weddings out there and private events. And just a little background, the space was initially constructed by Mr. Taylor for family events and events for his company. So it wasn't for third-party private event space, but as people came out there and started seeing the space, they thought, hey, this would be a great place to have a wedding. And so them having weddings out there in the past was not trying to circumvent some type of, they just didn't know at that point that they needed a conditional use permit. So obviously we think the staff report's correct, and we ask you that you approve this conditional use permit because we think it's desirable, not only for private event space, but desirable for the community, and it doesn't conflict with the comprehensive plan. The applicant in their justification highlighted some of the items in the comprehensive plan, and I'll just touch upon those.
Tanner, real quick, I'm sorry, if you could stop. Are you an attorney?
I am.
Okay, all right, very good. Very good. Sorry, go ahead.
So this encourages the continued use of agriculture, and it allows the property to keep its rural character. It recognizes the heritage of Oldham County. But when I see those pictures, I think, yeah, that does look like Oldham County, kind of the rolling green fields and the fence. It encourages the continued economic development. It allows the applicant and the farm to supplement income. It's a low intensity use. There's adequate infrastructure and access to support it. You saw that the roadway going up to it is, as Amy pointed out, is asphalt, and so there's no dust or anything of that nature. And finally, we're kind of ahead of the curve here in that Oldham County has already proposed regulations to allow this specific type of use through their agritourism regulations that will, in all likelihood, be passed shortly. So we hope that this board recognizes this desirable use, and we hope for your support. And I have Shelley McGowan here, who's part of the applicant and works with Mr. Taylor on a regular basis and really runs the operations. And so if you have any questions for either of us, she can come up and we can answer them for you.
All right, questions?
Typically on these kind of operations, we set parameters, parameters such as start time, when may the first visitors arrive, do they need to be off property, things like lighting, and additional. So do you have any recommended or proposed of those kind of things?
Well, I've not seen any about start times, but I did talk with Shelley, and she said that all of their operations or any events that they've had are over at 11 o'clock, at 11 p.m., and so they've never allow anything past 11 p.m. But I'm not familiar with start times. I assume some weddings can get early afternoon. Typical weddings, I think, are 4:30, 5:30 time range, but they've never had any events past 11 o'clock.
Are all the events held within the confines of the facility?
They are not. The weddings typically are actually outside of the venue. When you see where the grassy areas where they have chairs set up, but any of the music and the food that are served in connection with the weddings are typically inside the venue, so inside the barn area.
Talk to me, going off what Rob was talking about, lighting and signage, advertising. Can you talk to me a little bit about those?
Well, the current signage right now advertises the actual cattle farm, and but when people pull up, right, for weddings, they typically don't want to see, oh, we're pulling into a cattle farm, and so they changed that signage to Taylor Creek. They change it back to Taylor Creek Farm on those wedding days. So there's an existing sign down there on Old Hannah Road that advertises right now one of their cattle leasing companies, but they changed that out. So at this point, they're not asking for any new signage.
Okay.
And then lighting, I think they hang some outdoor lighting that you would see like on a patio type, but there is no lighting that would bring any light intrusion on any neighbors or the road or anything like that.
Okay. And parking, can you talk to me about parking?
Parking, there is a lot of space to park for the types of events that they have. What is your average, Shelley? Let me speak with Shelley, and then I can come back up.
Okay.
She said that, average wedding is 200 guests, and so they can park on the roadway and the asphalt behind the barn, and then once you go past, I guess, they can park here, and then all along the way. So there's enough asphalt parking that they don't even have to park on the grass typically.
All right, you said roadway.
Driveway.
Thank you.
Not sure, at some point, we had, before when we've dealt with these kind of things, we've dealt with lighting, and I remember that you guys gave us particular wording that helped us do that last time we had such an event, and I don't remember the kind of wording we would put in a proposal.
Well, I also think, I think that time I may have been, one of the times I was out here, I was in opposition, only because of the nature of the combined, and it was really close to a neighborhood. This, not that you couldn't put restrictions on some type of lighting, but and the previous time we were out here and I was in opposition, it was because it was really close to a neighborhood. I wasn't opposed to that, but the neighborhoods showed up here.
I understand your point. My point is, though, is based on the way everything sits right now, it probably wouldn't be an issue. But our plan is not what probably will happen. I would like to set some sort of restriction. I think it can be fairly liberal, but I still would like to put some sort of wording or restriction there about lighting.
Usually, we say that light shall not trespass onto adjoining properties. But again, if you look at,
And we also put downward facing,
Yes.
but I don't know how patio lights,
well, and those are temporary, those are not permanent lighting as
Okay,
well,
all right.
so.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing we talked about before, and
right.
I
Yeah.
want to
Right.
craft something that makes sense. Again, I don't anticipate something, but who knows down the road if some expansion or something, yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't think the applicant would have any problem whatsoever saying if we put a condition on it that there will be no light trespass on adjoining property
Right.
owners.
And then if it's like sign lighting or something, the sign lighting cannot, reflect into the eyes of, oncoming traffic or drivers.
that's already covered in other
I'm
ordinances.
going to say, I
Yeah.
think last time we talked about that, I don't remember if it was you or not, but said basically the sign regulations would take care of.
Correct.
We should just put something in that says they shall follow all sign regulations and just that
You
are
don't even
currently
have to
existing.
do that because
Yeah.
they already have an existing sign that they've
Just-
testified to.
Let's just
they've
put that
changed
it
it
doesn't
out.
trespass on other property.
Yeah, you could just say all lighting shall not trespass onto adjoining property. That'd have to be a big light.
Yeah.
You also did say something about amplified sound,
Right.
so,
Yep, haven't got there yet. But thank you.
but, you're probably not at that same, hearing to even start going down the list of things other than calling back up later and asking if they.
Sure.
Any other questions for Tenor? Or Michelle?
I've got one. Does the building have conditioned airspace? So you've got mechanical ventilation, or during each event, are the doors open for the events so that if there were to be amplified sound, it would project beyond the building?
Currently, the building does not have HVAC, but with the new addition, that is the plan to add HVAC and heat. But I think so, but your question goes to the sound and the music, from,
Yes, sir.
like at a reception, the wedding reception.
Yes, like if you're having amplified music, will the building be at its most open capacity, therefore the music or amplified sound could exit the building easily? Or if it has conditioned airspace, if it's an August wedding with the doors closed, amplified music with the air conditioning on, it's going to sound different? Is kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah, no, so I think the answer to that is it's both, right? There could be certain times of the year that the wedding party is going to want to have it open to look out over that waterway and the grass and the green area, and then but there'll be certain times of the year it'll either be too hot or too cold, and it'll be covered. But I can also tell you too that if you can look at this map, the way the front of the barn opens, I think the sound is going that way back across the 270 acres.
That also helps so that I wrap my mind around going towards that amplified music conversation or amplified sound. It helps us understand the direction that the sound may travel.
Yeah,
and stuff
so
as
I
well.
think that when they open up those big doors that you saw the pictures on, that is the direction that the sound will be traveling.
What is the distance of and I totally get that sound carries very far and hills and whatnot, but what is the distance of the next closest residence? I know it's 900 and some odd feet to the road, Hannah Road, and then there's a residence right on the other side, it looked like.
I think there's a residence here, And then there might be a residence back over here's
Yeah.
area.
I'm not sure if I have one zoomed out further than that. Yeah, I don't have one zoomed out further than that, but there is a home that's, well, it's probably more over here. Well,
Would there be any closer than the one, is this residence right here?
yes,
Okay, is there anything closer than that?
no,
So 900 and some odd feet would probably be the closest.
correct.
And again, I know sound, carries quite far, and
Again, you can put,
I know.
you can put a condition, no amplified music after 11 PM, because that's when they say all their guests
Right.
leave, just
Right.
like in the past.
Right, okay. All right. Questions? Any further questions? Okay, thanks, Tanner. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor? Opposed? Okay, Tanner, final statements, anything else to add? All good?
Actually, so if we go, if I remember history correctly, one of the things we talked about was sometimes caterers would have to show up early. So let's say you wanted a 10 o'clock wedding. Okay, again, I know that's not typical, but we're talking about what are the extremes, right? And so you had an early one. What we typically did, if I remember correctly last time, is we said no guests shall arrive before a certain time. So I'd like to put something
Never said 2 times, we set in time.
in times.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, don't-
Because if they, I mean, typically, if speaking from experience of just doing a wedding,
Yep.
you can't really, it's hard to judge when people get there. If they have in their contract, they have it from this time to this time, the end time is what's essential.
Okay,
Because some people have brunches and stuff, so, I don't think you want to set that parameter. I think the end game is what time does it end? And we've said, no amplified music after X time or things of that nature. I don't ever recall setting a beginning time.
we talked about it then because we were talking about guests arriving versus caterers arriving versus things like that.
Well, I thought that was when they were leaving, because another barn that we recently did, like the time that the event was over, then
Okay.
the caterers, I think, had like an hour and a half after that, like, because nobody was on the property after midnight. Because that
Yeah.
gave time for them to clean up and get their stuff out.
Do you ever have barn tours, farm tours at the same time you're having a wedding?
We do not plan on having barn tours or. I'll say. She said they've hosted the FFA a couple years so they've had other events out there, I guess, or visitors.
Right, which is an allowed use under the agricultural definition.
Big operation, so I know it's
What would be a functional end time for these events? For
11 p.m.
11 PM?
Yes, sir.
Again, if we say that, it would be all guests gone by 11, everyone by midnight or something, because I don't want them to have you know what I'm saying? Like a caterer could stay and clean up or whatever. I'm trying to, I hate to say 11.
Well, in the past, I think we've just said the events will be over at 11.
I don't know what we have said in the past, but I do agree with that. Just if the caterer is there, it takes them a couple hours to clean up, or 3 or 4, because it's a large.
Are we restricted by saying?
I say just the event, I
guests?
say event or guest needs
Okay.
to be over by, but,
Okay.
all right, any other questions for Tanner or anybody else in the audience? Thanks, Tanner.
Before we close the floor then, we've got the light issue. I've got something written down for that. The off-property 11 PM for guests. And then what did we say about sound? I don't have a note written here as a condition.
If all events are to end by 11 PM, then you could say no amplified music after 11 p.m. because they've testified that all events end at 11 p.m.
I know we could do that, but my,
So I wouldn't say all people are off the property by 11 p.m., just say all events shall end by 11 p.m.
I didn't say all people, we were saying guests,
Well, all guests,
right?
I
Because-
think that's,
Just,
I think that's a little,
I think that's a little bit difficult. I've been at some of these throughout my life, and I'm one of those that's there helping stack chairs and put
Right,
up
right.
regardless of, it. Therefore, I was a
Oh,
guest.
the
and
That's
I
why
was
I'm,
also-
that's why I'm trying to get
event.
technical before we close
And
the
that's
floor.
why I want to touch on that, because I have stayed after these events to
Yes.
help those that had the event go on participate in cleanup and put up. So
Sure.
I think we have to be careful on how we choose that. I think that if you say the end time of the event is 11 p.m., therefore amplified music.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of hard to have a mall cop standing there telling everyone get in their cars and exit the property, in an orderly fashion. But to your point, I don't know how you address that specifically, but I did just want to input that I know that oftentimes guests will stay to participate for cleanup and things of that nature. So I just
Sure.
want to.
So that's why the wording's important to me. What I'm
That's
trying to
right,
figure
right.
out is
That's why I
how to
wanted to
do it,
interject
how
that
to
as well
word
as we're
this so
going
that
down
we
that road.
meet everybody's needs.
Well, and remember, keep it simple first, and we're not working at 11
Sure.
p.m. at night.
Right.
So it's self-monitored, so make it as simple as possible. And I think in the past, we have said events end at 11. We did have the one case where they wanted to get people off their property at a certain time because the individuals that ran it wanted to be
Done
done.
before that.
That's not what's being discussed here. I think it's just the end time for the event and the end time for the music.
correct.
And what we've heard testimony from the applicant that they're willing to say 11 p.m. is perfect for them. Keep it simple.
Yep.
all right. Before we just go to general discussion among board members, any other questions for anybody in the audience?
So is the amplified sound 11? Is that early enough? Because I don't know, thinking of as a neighbor, if there's still music going at 11, and do we do that to say that's okay on Tuesday night and Wednesday night and Thursday night? Because, again, going back, when we talked about this before, I think one of the things we said was, or that let's forget what we did in the past. One of the things we could say is during Monday through, or Sunday night through Thursday night, you had no amplified sound after one time. Yet on Friday, Saturday night, you could have it not after another time, because,
I think just say the event and amplified music ceases at 11 o'clock,
so,
period.
I agree.
okay, that's what I'm
Keep it
asking.
simple.
And it's amplified sound.
Amplified
Because it
sound.
could be somebody yelling into the microphone, "Hey,
Right.
thanks for coming to the party." It doesn't matter what the sound is, it's going to travel. So whether it's
Right.
music, it'd be amplified sound.
Okay. Okay? All right. All right, I'm going to close the floor and open it up for any additional general discussion.
I'll just start with saying that, given the images that we've seen, the tract of land that it's on, the location that it's in, and the name that's associated with this and what's been done with this property throughout the ownership of the property owner, I would be in support of this. And what a magnificent facility. The images were breathtaking. For some of these that we've looked at, this is a magnificent facility. This is a magnificent facility that folks would enjoy going to, therefore I would be in support of it. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion?
I agree with Ron with everything he said.
Any discussion or thought to what Rob's been tracking and crafting down here? We all good with 11 o'clock as far as a condition for this and event and amplified sound? What else do you have, Rob, as far as conditions?
I was saying that the typical one that we always have to do about today's public hearing, all lighting shall not impede on neighboring property, no amplified sound after 11 p.m.
All right, any other conditions that anybody can think of that we need to?
Oh, yeah, right there, yes.
And then no additional signage.
Okay.
That's what they testified. They wouldn't have any additional sign.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Move to approve OC-19-013. Based on the drawings provided to us, the map of the area, the distance from neighbors, seeing that there's no opposition to what's been done, given the fact that the testimony shows us that the facility is well away from any neighboring properties, and given the fact that there's a need for this kind of event space as given in the testimony that they've already been using it as such, that the move to approve because it is essential and desirable to the community and not in conflict with the objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan, and the community has a need and it is compatible with the character of the area. The conditions are: the conditional use permit for the private event venue shall only apply to the application considered at the May 16, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. Number 2, all lighting shall not impede on neighboring property. Number 3, no amplified sound after 11 p.m. Number 4, all events shall end at 11 p.m. And number 5, no additional signage with this application.
Okay,
I second it.
all right, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. Okay. Second, Mike, you want to read it?
Docket OC 19014. An application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit for a kennel canine training facility located at 7300 Oregon Creek Road, Pendleton.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this case as I have a bearing on the outcome applies to me, so I feel like I should recuse myself from this.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, you want to go ahead and,
Thank you.
yep,
My name is Tom McIntyre. I'm a senior planner here with Oldham County Planning and Development. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a canine training facility on 46 acres. On this slide, we have just a normal aerial. They're large tracks. It's quite a bit out in the county, so it's a good 50-acre chunk. Here we have conservation zoning is encapsulates the property. So here, normally we don't put the contours in the presentation, but felt it was necessary here as when you pull up and go into the drive, you rise 146 feet. So here on the first leg of the journey, you have a 90-foot elevation change. And then for the second leg, you have a 56-foot elevation change. So it's pretty steep, and there's pictures to follow. Per the applicant's justification statement, the dog training facility will be constructed of steel with the indoor and outdoor dog runs, and will be soundproofed to not disturb the surrounding residents. The proposed dog training facility will be placed in a natural clearing behind an existing two-car garage. In addition, the natural landscape will not be affected and no trees will be removed. The surrounding trees are dense and provide a natural buffer from the various sounds and smells associated with kennels. The facility will likely house 3 dogs at a time, but will be built to handle up to 10, and no outside animals will be boarded. In addition, there will be no signage indicating the presence of a canine training facility per the applicant. Here we have the natural clearing that we can see in the back. We have the proposed 50 by 42,000 square foot kennel. And then here's the two-car garage and your house. Based on this graphic, the closest thing that we really want to worry about as far as this, the location of this 2,000 square foot dog training facility is the southern boundary line, which is 165 feet south. Other than that, you have existing single-family homes over here, and it's 590 feet, and then another one is 630. And like the contour graphic showed, you are quite a bit up. So you can't, even if you're down at the bottom, you're not going to be able to see up, and if you're at the top, you can't see down. So as with all conditional uses, there's standards. So the number of animals can be dictated by the board. The pens and runs, so it will have to be with the all kennel pens, runs, and sales areas must be at least 100 feet from all property lines. They shall be located within an improved enclosed area, and exercise run shall be enclosed on all sides by a site obscuring solid wall at least 6 feet in height. In addition, there should be no objectionable odors generated by the use detectable by neighboring properties. So here we have the natural clearing. On the back side of the natural clearing, looking towards the existing two-car garage. Here I'm two-car garages on our left side as we're looking back into the clearing back here. There's about a 10-foot drop between the two-car garage and the house. Here's another view just looking back up. Here is on the back side of the house. So if you're looking on the back side of the house towards the road, and the road's probably down here somewhere. So that's your view. It's quite pleasant, to be honest with you. So here we have the drive, and this is the first leg right here, or the second leg, I'm sorry. Here's the road right there. So as I mentioned earlier, oh yeah, it's quite a
Driveway, right? When you said
correct.
road. Yep.
Yes. And we also have the drive here. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a kennel/canine training facility on 46 acres. I'm more than happy to field any questions.
All right, I've got a few. Let's go back slow, keep going, I'll tell you when. Keep going, keep going. Keep going, one more. Go again. I'm looking, what I want to see is the view to the nearest property. I think we've already passed it. Go forward, 2 or 3 more. Keep going, right there. No.
That's
I
just
thought you had,
existing
there was
house.
one shot that you had. Keep going, let me see more. And I'm looking at the arrow. Keep going, right there, that's it.
Mhm.
All right, so if I'm correct and I'm looking at the bottom right-hand corner where you're pointing, the arrow where you're pointing, you are somewhat looking at the nearest property owner.
Correct.
A little bit to the right, I'm guessing, would be the nearest property owner, is that correct?
Correct.
So somewhere out in this general area would be the nearest property.
That is correct.
Am I correct? Okay. All right. And why were you telling us the different elevation?
Just once I went out on site, I just thought it was relevant.
Relevant for sound, relevant just for sight?
For sound and sight, correct.
All right, go back a few more. I'll tell you when. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going, keep going. Stop right in there. Okay, so that square box there is the, and actually, just a second ago, that view that we were looking at was something like that?
Somewhat. So yeah, the view was from right here, from
Okay.
from in front of the single-family residence.
Okay, So what is this, yeah, that box, what is that right there? Is that
That is
the
the proposed 2,000 square foot training facility.
proposed 2,000? Okay, and that is, the elevation that you were talking about, that is roughly 150 feet above, right there.
Correct.
Okay. And then, and I might ask the applicant, but right now I'll ask you, to your knowledge, is this guy the next closest residence that you are aware of,
Believe so. That is correct.
which is 1,500 feet away?
Yes, sir.
Is that what I'm looking at here?
Correct.
And then the property line here is 165 feet away to that part, that's what I'm looking at?
Correct.
That's these numbers?
Based on our GIS maps, yes.
Okay.
So those aren't survey grade lines, but it's good reference tool that we use in our
Okay.
office.
All right, yeah, go back a couple more slow. It seems, stop right there. It seems like I had a question. All this is CO1, is that correct?
Correct.
What is, why is this highlighted differently?
This is the natural clearing
The natural.
that was shown in the photo. Because most of this lot, the 46 acres is heavily wooded.
All right, so go forward, right there. So the existing garage is 590 feet away. The natural, and again, I'm asking you, and I want to discuss this with the applicant also. The natural clearing is right in that area, and the proposed location for the kennel is in the natural clearing, which is further back than what the existing 590 feet garage is. Okay. All right. Any other questions, board members? All right, thanks, Tom.
Thinking about it, I do have one letter of support from a neighbor.
Okay.
I'll have to pull it up here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and click to it. Okay. All right. Board members, anything else for Tom? All right, thank you. We can have the applicant come forward. Morning. Raise your right hand
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
and name and address.
My name is Rebecca Maddox. I live at 7510 Meadow Stream Court, Crestwood, Kentucky.
Okay, Rebecca, if you want to justify this?
Yes, good morning. I'm here because my husband and I have recently put a contract to purchase this property. We intend to live in the house there located on the screen. We have put in basically a contingency clause in order to receive this, in order to go forward with the purchase of the property, that we receive this approval from the board. The reason that I'm seeking approval from the board is I work in federal law enforcement. I've done so for the last 19 years, and it's been a long-standing dream of mine to develop and grow police canines. There is a shortage, it's a critical shortage in the law enforcement community of trained police dogs, and living at this property would kind of be unique in that it has enough space, if the kennel is approved, that I would be able to live at the residence and train my dogs in the same vicinity. So that would be very beneficial to me and to the dogs as well. So the facility itself, I still intend to work in federal law enforcement. The federal government has me for about 17 more years, in fact. So I do not intend on having a whole kennel full of canines at any given time. So probably about 3 at a time that I would be able to handle, you know, in addition to my regular duties. But I would like to build the facility a little bigger, so I would be able to hold more dogs if that ever happened. I never see going over 10 because I don't think with me training them that I would be able to do that. I would be stretched too thin with my other duties as well. So what I'm proposing is a 40 by 50 steel building. The reason for the size of that primarily is to have an indoor training space for them, so not everything would be outdoors. The dogs would be housed in the facility. They would be released outdoors for exercise and, of course, potty breaks, but they would be primarily in the kennel facility itself. I anticipate construction on the facility anywhere from about 1 to 5 years. There wouldn't be any parking. There wouldn't be any signage. I wouldn't be boarding outside animals. This would be something that I would be controlling myself. If I had anyone helping me at all, I have a special needs. I have a friend who has a special needs daughter. She may come and help me care for the dogs, bathe them, and so forth. But that would be the extent of that. Don't anticipate having any significant lighting outdoors. Probably only motion activated security lighting. I will soundproof the building because my intent is never to cause any disruption to any of the surrounding residents. So that being said, I think the elevation is significant here because the proposed canine facility is 146 feet higher than the street level. So it does maintain the character of the county in that nobody can see the building. You can't see the building from the street. The surrounding neighbors are not able to see the building, you know, either. So I do think that bears weight on it. Also, you can tell this tract is zoned conservation. It is heavily wooded, and in addition to the soundproofing materials that I would be using for the building, I think that the natural terrain, being that it is so heavily wooded, would provide some soundproofing as well. Just because. I don't anticipate taking any trees down. There is that natural clearing there where we could pretty easily place this building. So my intent is not to disrupt the conservation, zoning aspect of the lot itself. So in fact, that's why we want it, because my husband and I, who's here with me today, want space around us. It's a beautiful place and we want to keep it that way. So as far as utilities go, there's existing electric that we could use. We would have to put a septic system in just for that facility, but there wouldn't be any burden on any type of sewer infrastructure because it would be contained there. So there wouldn't be any impact to streams or waterways or anything like that. And any waste from the dogs themselves, I could compost and spread on the property. So I feel like we are, if this would be approved, that we would be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. I don't feel like the kennel would adversely affect any of the surrounding environmental features. I don't feel like the wildlife would be disturbed. The natural habitats would be preserved. We wouldn't be a source of light pollution, air pollution. We wouldn't be a burden to streams or waterways. And I know the big thing with the kennel that everyone's afraid of is the sound. And like I said, my intent is not to disrupt anyone. The dogs would be housed inside the building, and I would soundproof it adequately, as that is a requirement, too, of the kennel construction itself. So I guess that's my statement, and if you all have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them.
Soundproofing, what material do you plan on using for soundproofing?
Well, whatever it takes, actually. So what I anticipate is the building itself, the exterior of it would be steel. Of course, we would have to insulate it. We would have to probably put some drywall or sheetrock or something like that on the inside of it as well to ensure that, there wouldn't be any disruption to any of the surrounding residents. And also keep in mind, I'm living there at that house, so I don't want them to disrupt me either. I don't want to be kept up by dogs barking either. So, I think it's going to be a combination of the trees, the construction of the building, insulation, sheetrock, and those types of things.
Employees?
Right now, I don't anticipate having any, with the exception of who I mentioned, the special needs young lady who may come and help me bathe and, just exercise the dogs. She's a family friend, and that would be a good way to develop some independence for her and having, some sort of small employment. But that would be the only person that I would be considering right now.
So you've mentioned 3 to 10 dogs. If you do get up to 10 dogs, you're still thinking the max employees should just be the one?
In the future, maybe I would have another part-time person, but for right now, I'm just thinking her and I probably for the foreseeable future, yes.
Okay,
So police dogs, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with this, but police dogs usually are not specifically trained for their tasks until they're about 2. So there is a time from the time that they're born until the time that they're about 2. This is the area that I would be trying to focus on, is this age within the dogs, where we're trying to teach them basic obedience skills, things like that. Once they reach an acceptable level, a police department usually would purchase a dog, and then they would do further specific training with that dog. So what I would be dealing with is, anywhere from probably 3 to 10 dogs, where I'm doing basic obedience commands, things like that, preparing them for their specialized training, teaching them to heel, to stop, things like that.
I've been trying to teach my dog for 10 years.
Me too.
So you just gave testimony on you did a very thorough job there, but as you heard in the previous case, we will consider additional considerations or conditions upon approval. Would you be okay with, and you mentioned all these in your testimony, but no parking, no signage, no boarding of outside animals, no additional lighting, soundproofing? You're okay with putting conditions on any approval of,
Those things,
Yeah.
yes, that would be fine.
and up to 10 dogs at any given time?
That's fine, as if you
Limit
would
the
like to,
employees to
let's say 2,
2, 3?
yeah, 2, 3, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm just curious regarding the training, would it be necessary at any time to turn the animals loose on the property, such as search and rescue training to that effect, where the dogs may potentially, in part of the training experience, enter onto neighboring properties, or are they more confined? From what I'm hearing you say, it's more confined training for the obedience and stuff, but
Right.
in the scope of the potential training,
Right.
would the animals potentially be turned loose where they could maybe get into the neighbor's property?
That would not be my intent. What I would like to do is train them inside. Now, I'm not going to say that there wouldn't be a time where I would release them on the tract that's my property, the 46 or 47 acres or whatever it is, to do some obedience training, but it would be one, and it would be with me. So there would never be in my mind any time where I would just turn 10 dogs loose and that be a hazard or an infringement on somebody else's property. No.
Certainly, and I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
what you would be going through
Yeah,
with that,
and-
as far as what the potential effects may be on a neighbor, and I think you've answered that question nicely. Thank you very much.
Where do you acquire these animals?
Actually, there is a kennel in Nashville that I would like to source from. They specialize in German Shepherds that have working characteristics bred in them. So more of the line straight from Germany. So the idea is that you get a dog that has a work ethic built into it. You challenge them to develop that ethic, and then at about 2, then the police departments would come in and they would say, oh yes, this dog has the drive that I'm looking for, and so forth, and they would purchase that dog and then take it into more specialized training, whether they wanted to do narcotics, crowd control, search and rescue, whatever that would be. So,
As I understand, these dogs will belong to you, then you will train these animals and sell them to various agencies?
yes, yes,
So the agencies won't bring their dogs to you?
That's correct.
These will be your dogs?
that's correct.
Okay.
The way that police source dogs is they basically sign a contract with a vendor. That vendor may be me, and they say, hey, we would like two police dogs. Then they'll come and they'll look at the dogs that I have. They'll look at their drive, how they react in certain situations, and they'll say, yes, we would like these two. So they'll take those two, develop them for further training.
Are you involved in this type of activity currently?
No, I work for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and I'm an investigator. I inspect firearms and explosives. However, we do have police canines with ATF, and I have worked with the Louisville Metro Bomb Squad with canine training and so forth. So I also was party to the national odor recognition testing that ATF did recently, which is a nationwide dog detection type thing. So I am involved in it, although my daily duties, I am not a canine officer.
Okay, thank you.
What was the national what?
It's the National Odor Recognition
Odor
Testing.
recognition?
Yeah, it's called NORT, and ATF basically puts this on, and what it is we provide a certain number of scents, and the dogs from various police agencies come, and if they react to these scents adequately, and we determine, yes, they can smell these things and they're reacting to them, then they get what we call a NORT certification. And this certification is actually mandated by Congress. The standards are. So there's 6 odors that Congress says, in order to get this certification, your dog needs to do X, Y, Z. So yes, so I was party to that and part of that as well. We just did that in April out at the fairgrounds.
Very interesting.
It's actually very fascinating. It's amazing what dogs can do.
All right, any other questions?
I have another question. As I understand from the testimony that you have provided today, there will be no breeding of dogs on
I
this
don't
property.
anticipate that at first. I won't say that I won't ever do that, but I don't have time right now to be a dog breeder. I would like to source them from the kennel in Nashville. Now, if I actually got 2 dogs that developed exceptional working characteristics and I thought that they would be, a good bloodline, I'm not saying that I wouldn't breed them. That's why I would say up to 10 dogs if I had a litter of puppies, but I wouldn't be able to handle more than a litter at a time. It's just too much for me with my job duties that I do right now. So to answer your question, I don't anticipate doing that at first. I won't say it's never outside the realm of possibility, but it would have to be some pretty exceptional circumstances. And the tract that we're purchasing is actually bigger than the one on the screen. We're purchasing there's another tract, 11B, that's north, I guess, of this red line, that's above this red line. So we actually, the property boundary is bigger, I think, than what we're looking at on the screen.
But it's still
It's
a
still
total of
46 point,
46.92.
yes. It's 2 tracts that sit side by side to each other.
Okay. Any other questions? Tom, you good?
Fine, thank you.
Mike? Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the applicant? Opposed? Yes, sir.
My name's Don St. Clair. I'm sorry.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Don, where do you live?
I live 7901 Oregon Creek Road.
Okay.
I'm approximately a few feet in elevation above their property. I'm directly across the road.
Is this your property here?
No, sir, I'm on down the creek a little bit.
Can you point, just touch the screen of roughly where you are?
Yes, sir. I start in right here, and then I run down the creek.
I didn't say, did you touch the screen?
Yes, sir.
There we go,
There it
there we
is.
go. Okay,
I start right there, and I run this direction.
gotcha, thank you.
And then I go up on the hill behind. I've got 96 acres.
Okay.
Are you toward Trimble County?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm on the northern side. I've actually stood down in the bottom, approximately right here, and spoke to Dr. Yancey right here. When the leaves are off and everything in a normal voice, we've held a conversation between each other. So sound does travel down in there when the leaves are off. That's one concern I have. Plus, where they're proposing this building, if I'm not mistaken, is the septic field for the house. I don't see the garage right here, but right behind the garage is the lateral field for the house. They have a pump at the house that pumps the sewage up, and then it runs in the lateral field right behind the garage. So that's another concern. Plus, when the leaves are off and everything, I have a neighbor up, Hollers up the road. They have got a horse stable up there, and when the wind's right, I get a smell off of them. I mean, even where I'm at. The sound does travel down there quite well. Like yesterday, I heard the neighbor, Alex Pearson, mowing his yard. And that's down in the holler, down in Oldham Creek and up on the other side of the ridge. Plus, I appreciate what the lady's doing with the dogs and everything. I've been around dogs, been trained. Excuse me, but when I was in Vietnam, I worked with a trainer one night, said that he let a dog loose and the dog come back with an arm in his mouth. So that's another thing I'm concerned with. I mean, she may handle the dogs well, but if that dog's not with a trainer, they can be very vicious. I mean, German Shepherds tend to that way, just like pit bulls, and it's going on how they're raised and everything. And Pete Good's wife and Pee Wee used to train, or she raised dogs for Jefferson County Police. I actually stood in the garage one day for an hour when one of her dogs had me cornered. I couldn't move. I was going to go up a stack of parts bins. I couldn't even get to that because every time I moved, the dog growled at me till she come out and stop the dog. I know they're very aggressive. You know, that's what they're trained to be. That's another concern because I've got grandchildren. Plus, I've got 16 and a half acres I'm going to put up for sale as soon as I get it approved. It's right across the road. It's approximately in this area here and runs up the hill this way and then back down. That's another, I mean, I had it surveyed long before this ever come up. It's not just a whim to stop this. So, that's about all I've got to say.
All right. Questions for Don?
Yes, sir. Based on the image that we're seeing on the screen at this time,
Yes, sir.
and where you're referencing that your home's located,
Yes, sir.
what would you estimate the footage would be from your home that I don't see in the image to where the
Well, you
proposed
can't
building is?
see, my place is up here in the corner. I just start right here where the arrow is. I run down that yellow line. I run down, well, it's not on the map here. I'm approximately, probably a quarter of a mile as the crow flies.
Okay, because as I'm looking at these images, I see like one at 630 feet and one at 1,500 feet.
Yes, sir.
Based on the information that you're giving us, you would estimate that your residence now,
Yes,
not
sir.
just your
Yes,
land
sir.
that you own, is greater than 1,500 feet potentially from that location?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Now, I own, where the yellow line comes down here, I actually own from there and then down the creek, which is northward there.
okay. And to your knowledge, do any of your neighbors have dogs?
Yes, sir. The one that lives right here down below where they are,
Yes, sir.
she's got 4 black labs.
And do you hear any
Yes, sir.
noise concerns from
Yes,
those
sir.
dogs?
Yes, sir.
And is
No.
it seasonal? You were talking about like when the leaves are not on the trees. Do you notice it more relevant any particular time of the year?
When the leaves don't have any on the trees.
And then to your knowledge, are those dogs housed indoors, or are they housed outdoors, or do you know?
They run sometimes. I've caught them on my place twice, and they've actually growled at me, which ain't a good thing for me.
So to your knowledge, though, does she typically, or does that neighboring property keep those 4 dogs indoors, or do you know, like, is there a kennel or a pen outside that the
No,
dogs
sir,
are
it's
housed in?
not that I know of.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I used to own that property too, so
Okay,
I sold it.
thank you.
Any other questions for Don? All right, thank you, Don.
Yes, sir.
All right, anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? No, not yet. All right, seeing nobody else, rebuttals, would you like to come forward?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, if you want to come forward. All right, let's get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Name and address.
My name is Breck Morgan. I live at 1451 East Highway 524.
Okay, yes, sir, your question.
My mother and I own the property in the bottom left-hand corner there. We have 230 acres that backs up there on the, they're to the east of us. And my question is, it's just a question, is, since it's police dogs, and she maybe has already answered this, and if she has, I'm sorry, but I'm just curious, will there be any training involving gunfire or things like that to train the dogs? We're just, because sound does travel. Most of those houses over there, we hear them when they mow their yards, and like Mr. St. Clair stated, and which is not a problem, but I figure if I hear that, I would definitely hear gunfire. I'm not anti-gun, but if that's gonna be part of the training, I was just curious about that.
Okay, all right, well, we can get that addressed here in just a second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rebecca, would you like to come forward on rebuttals?
Yeah, so I can answer most of these questions right away. Would it be possible for my husband to answer the question regarding the septic, since he's...
Yeah, we can get him sworn in.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and address?
Monroe Dwight Maddox Jr. and
I'm sorry.
Monroe Dwight Maddox Jr. And I live at 7510 Meadow Stream Court, Crestwood, Kentucky.
Okay. All right, I guess if you want to start with the,
Certainly. So as my wife had mentioned, we have not yet purchased this property. We had only put the contract in, and so the building was proposed, and as Mr. Sinclair mentioned, it very well may be that there are lateral fields there. We don't know because we hadn't surveyed it, but we were looking for a proposed location for the kennel, and our focus was trying to preserve the integrity of the conservation and to disturb the wooded area the least amount as possible. So certainly, as we were to look at it and survey a little bit more, if there were lateral fields, there might have to be a slight adjustment, but I don't think that it would be of any huge difference as far as spacing goes. It's going to be in that general clearing area. The idea being that it's still going to be, if anything, further away from people than where it's at. But as my wife said, we're living there. We're going to be near these dogs. The sounds going to be near where we are, so we're going to be very cognizant of that. And so I'll let you go ahead and take care of it.
So it looks like the issues that I had written down were that he was concerned about smell, sound, and possibly the demeanor of the animals. So as far as smell goes, like I said, you know, I'm intending on housing the animals inside. They'll have the outdoor runs, and I'm going to keep them clean. And we have plenty of space in order to compost waste and so forth. And, you know, I don't think that 3 dogs at a time is going to cause any sort of odor that would travel that distance to another residence, that would become an issue. But you know, cleanliness in a kennel and cleanliness with animals is important. And if you don't keep them clean, they get sick. And these dogs, these police dogs that you're training, they're worth a lot of money. No one in their right mind is going to let their kennel facility get nasty and gross, and their animals have health issues and so forth. So, you know, I think as far as the smell goes, that could be easily mitigated on the property just with regular cleaning and composting. As far as sound goes, we've talked about soundproofing. I don't want any noise. I'm living there. I certainly don't want my neighbors disturbed by any noise. My husband and I maintain a good relationship with our neighbors, and that's what we want. We don't want anyone upset. So we will definitely, and especially if that's a condition of obtaining this permit, absolutely we'll do that. The demeanor of the dogs. So these dogs are not going to have contact with the neighbors. These are police dogs that I'm training. They're going to be located in my facility. I'm not going to let one of these dogs corner a neighbor or a child or anything like that. You know, and like I said, what I'm doing is I'm doing basic obedience training. I'm not training these dogs to be vicious. I'm not training them to be attack dogs. That's the training that happens after the police department has them, once they're age 2 and up. That's the specific type of thing that the department would do. So when I have these dogs, it's sit, stay, you know, things like that. So, and I would just remind the board that we are at such a critical shortage of police dogs nationwide. If you think about the number of shooting incidents, different levels of crowd control, you know, suspected bomb threats, you know, you have to have dogs for the Kentucky Derby. You have to have dogs for the Super Bowl. You have to have dogs at schools now sometimes when kids are going in and out to maintain safety of children. So, you know, it's never my intention to make someone uncomfortable around one of these dogs, but they serve a very important purpose in the community. And I would just like to remind the board of, you know, the importance of that and what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm not trying to just train attack dogs to you know, scare or anything like that. That's never my intention. So the question about gunfire, so no, gunfire is not going to be part of the training of the animals. Now, my husband and I, we do some target shooting from time to time. We may do that on our property. We don't do that a lot, you know, just from time to time. But no, regular gunfire on the property is not foreseen. That's not part of what I'm doing. So, you know, and I certainly don't want that to be, you know, a noise hindrance or anything to anyone, so.
Okay.
I have quite a bit of knowledge in this area, but
With police
you
canines?
specifically spoke about obedience training. There's a big difference in obedience training from training an attack dog, a bomb dog, a drug dog, and all that. So
Right.
you're only doing obedience training, which is sit, stay, place, and basically keep your mouth shut. And then after that, you release them or sell them, and then the real training begins at whether they're going to be an attack dog,
Yes.
drug dog,
Yes.
bomb dog, etc.
Yes.
There's a big difference in that type of training.
Yes, and I've gone out with Louisville Metro canine officers and so forth to try to get, knowledge of what their needs are and how they purchase dogs and what they look for in dogs. And for instance, Louisville Metro has a dog trainer on staff, and this is what they do. They purchase a dog that's about 2. They want one that has the right characteristics, the right demeanor, and then that person that's on staff with Louisville Metro does training further, whether that's in narcotics, bomb, crowd control, attack dog, or otherwise. So they have, the police departments have specific people that further that training.
You ever been to Double H in Trailersville?
I have not, no,
Familiar with them?
no. Is that a training facility?
Big one, yes.
Yeah.
So the conditional use permit is for a kennel / canine training facility. Is that, and Jim, or actually Tom, is that actually a conditional permit on conservation for a canine training facility? I know kennel is, but a canine training?
We use the term interchangeably. Yeah, we use that term interchangeably, so anytime.
Use what, kennel and a canine training facility?
Canine
interchange-
training facility, yes. We use those as the same. We use those same standards and apply them that way.
Okay.
And if you remember, your job is to interpret the regulations, and we've had cases where we're looking at similar type facilities. We don't have everything listed. This is a similar type facility to a kennel.
Yeah, but, so my question is, I'm either going to consider putting conditions for this facility will be used specific for the training of police dogs or canines, right? I can put a condition on that versus a kennel.
Well, I think the condition that she's offered that I've written down is that they would not have any boarding of any outside animals. So these are her animals that she is housing on the facility and doing whatever it is that she's doing with them, whether it's training, she mentioned a little bit potential breeding, but not a lot. So it's really for her own animals, her own dogs, not for boarding of any other animals.
Right, okay.
So that's the difference between what we would normally call a kennel and what she's doing.
And that's what I'm trying to think about, is what other activities might be involved in a kennel that, and to her testimony, she's 100% about, police dogs. So do I need to limit or consider conditions for that versus just a kennel?
I have a list of those potential conditions of approval. We can go over those when you get to that point in the hearing. You're still at the rebuttal evidence, and there's still rebuttal from opposition.
All right.
So when you get to that where you want to have a discussion about conditions, we can do
All right,
that.
very good, thank you. Okay, so you had, that was your rebuttal.
Yes.
All right, anything else?
No. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at this time.
I do.
Thank
May I follow up?
On the rebuttal?
Yes, because the question was brought up in opposition regarding the septic system, and I've just got a couple of questions to that. Is that permissible at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're under contract on this property, but you have not executed a purchase yet. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's correct.
Have you, at this time, had the home inspections done on the property, or are you waiting to see what the outcome of this is?
We're waiting to see what the outcome of this is. Yes. Because this is something that's very important to me, and if the board doesn't approve this, then it's going to change whether we purchase the property, because this has been a dream of mine, and I would really like to go forward with that.
Yes, ma'am. So then let me just touch on that briefly. So then it's realistic to say that if you were to if this were to be approved, you're going to move forward to execute your purchase, therefore you get into your home inspections at that time.
Absolutely, and the contract does state that, the purchase contract does.
So where I'm going with this, oftentimes is there is some question as to the whereabouts of the septic system. In home inspections, oftentimes a septic inspection is done during the inspection process on the property, and at that time, you would then be able to identify and locate the lateral lines in the septic system that is in question.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
going back to, kind of you said, I think some more surveying or engineering or something to that effect, oftentimes that can be established. So
Yes.
I think if you were to move forward prior to purchase, it would be realistic to say you'll have a clear understanding of where your septic system is, as well as the lateral lines through the inspection process
Yeah,
that would then help with placement of the
absolutely.
building.
Yes, absolutely. And we would have, you know, a certified professional to
Certainly.
that extent come out and locate that and, you know, because we would need to make sure that they were not a hindrance to where we wanted to place the proposed kennel. But the slide that the gentleman put up earlier that showed the clearing, you can tell that clearing is really large. So if we did have a lateral line somewhere in that area, I feel like we could move within that existing open area. You know, we could get around that because it is such a large area. So
Yes, ma'am.
I feel like it's those confines we can easily work with.
And I'm just trying to wrap my mind around, as you stand here today with the information available to you, is why we don't know the location of the lateral lines at this moment.
Absolutely, we don't.
Because we're early enough in the game that you
Yes.
haven't gone through your inspection
Yes.
process. Yes, ma'am, and I'm just trying to understand so that we know where the pieces of the puzzle are here at this court.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Larry, can I ask?
About the rebuttal? We'll have time in a minute just for general discussion, but if we want to talk about the rebuttal, we're good? Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you.
All right, rebuttal by the opposition. Would you like to come forward and rebut what you heard? Okay, all right, very good. Rebecca, any final statements?
No, I would just like to thank the board for hearing my proposal and that I feel like we would be in compliance with the county comprehensive plan going forward without any problem, and that I would be very, you know, aware of the needs of the neighbors and would, you know, do my absolute best to make sure that everyone around was happy and that, you know, that there were no issues with the construction of the kennel or sound or anything like that going forward. I'm trying to do a service to the community by doing this and, you know, trying to fill a niche with the police dogs that is so critical right now.
Very good. Final statements, opposition? Good? All right. Questions?
I have a question for the applicant.
Okay, Rebecca?
Did I understand you correctly when you said you were going to have a separate septic system for the kennel?
Yes, I would like to put a separate one in because the house has a septic system itself, and I don't want to, I guess, overburden that system. And I feel like I would need to have a restroom probably out in the kennel facility. So for me, when I was out training the dogs, that I didn't have to walk all the way back to the house. So I would anticipate something that had a very small capacity going in, for the kennel itself.
Okay, when you house your dogs, will you have indoor runs?
Yes.
Or you put the dogs in cages or crates or whatever?
What they'll have is they'll have a separate indoor run, and it's important that the dogs kind of don't see each other. So I anticipate, having something like a Brico block or something separating the two, and then that run will have a door on the back of it that could be open to allow them to go outside to exercise. So, it's sort of an indoor-outdoor thing. And so, of course, like in the evenings, I would bring the dogs in, shut the door, and they would be housed inside the kennel.
Will you have floor drains in that kennel to wash out the runs?
Yes, and that's a necessity.
Which will go through the septic system?
Yes, that's a necessity to keeping the kennel clean and to keeping odors down and to keeping the animals healthy, yes. So having a drainage system within the kennel itself is an important thing. Having good concrete that's not too porous, so it doesn't absorb any smell or anything like that, and being able to clean regularly and wash that away is really important to the health of the dogs.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, board members, to anybody else? Thank you, Rebecca. All right, board members, before I close the floor, we good? Any other questions? All right, I'm going to close the floor for public hearing, open it up for general discussion.
I think this applicant has covered everything with her testimony. I think excuse me, I'm sorry. It's called old age. I think the applicant has covered a lot of things with her testimony. I think the opposition has presented his case. So it looks to me that with the conditions or parameters, somebody used the word parameters, I think that's a good word, that I will probably go along with this with proper parameters, with conditions.
So some things that, some of your parameters, again, I had talked about this, but I will be looking for some conditions, whoever's will make a motion, but I too am in favor with some conditions. Up to 10 dogs at any given time, no additional parking, or we can wordsmith that. No additional signage, no boarding of outside animals, no additional lighting, soundproof the buildings up to 3 employees. And I'll get to Jim here in a minute, or staff, regarding kennel versus if we want to try to narrow that down. I don't know, but we'll talk about that. But at least those are some of the conditions I will be looking for. Now, a couple other things that I thought of, and I do want to address some of the issues that opposition had. First of all, we're talking about up to 10 puppies per the testimony. So a safety issue, I can just see 10 puppies running, or if there was an issue and they did get loose and the dog's getting to, the adjoining properties, we are talking puppies, at least that's the intent. Now, if some of the puppies don't sell, puppies become big dogs. And so she could end up with a surplus of dogs if she doesn't sell them. And then there could be, depending on how many personal dogs, she has, there could be an issue. However, stating that, it's everybody's general right to have, animals. I think opposition even said that one of the neighbors had 4 dogs. She's talking about having 3 right now, up to 10, but so I've got a dog. That's everybody's right? She's asking to do a kennel, and that's what we're here to do is approve or deny the operation of a kennel. Smells, the horse. Opposition talked about the horse smell. Well, yeah. Again, I have a right to have a horse, and the horse does smell, and that does carry. Same thing with sound and whatnot. So, given the conditions that I laid out, I also will be in favor. The question about gunfire, she stated that no gunfire for the training, but personal right to fire pistols and whatnot on the property. Well, I do the same. So again, that's not an issue for me. So I'm in favor given the conditions I laid out. Any other conditions that you guys can think of? Tom, you want to, or Tom, Jim?
Just look in our direction some of the
Yeah,
time.
that's right.
I didn't have any additional other than what you stated, and I can restate those for you if you're ready to make a motion and consider approval.
Any other general discussion, or?
Just look, what is your definition of kennel again?
I did want to talk about kennel and trying to narrow that down if we need to. Again, we did talk about up to 10, so if we just leave it as a general kennel, we are talking up to 10 dogs, so.
The only reason I inquire is this truly a commercial on-site business? She could do this on her own, just personally training her own dogs and then doing whatever she wants to. It's a big difference in a kennel operation, is a boarding operation, commercial monthly fees, and all this, in my mind. Now, I'm trying to find out what your legal definition is in this regard.
Well,
But she said that there'd be no outside animals.
I understand, that's why I want to make sure the panel knows what we're talking, a distinction between the two.
Well, it's running a business. She's talking about selling the animals versus a personal, I own 10 dogs and training 10 dogs.
so let me
Well, if you
give you the
look at
definition
horses,
that's in
I
our...
do that all the time, but it's not a business. I can sell and buy and sell my horses, and I trade them. But anyway, that's all right.
Okay. The definition that's in our regulations in the zoning ordinance for a kennel is any place where home pets are kept for the purposes other than those customary and incidental to a household. This includes commercial establishments in which dogs or domestic animals are housed, groomed, bred, boarded, trained, or sold, all for fee or compensation. So this fits. When you look at the conditional uses under the CO zoning, a conditional use, and actually the very first one under commercial is veterinary hospitals and kennels. And so I think it fits. And that's why the applicant is here. Before they made the purchase, they asked us, which is great because typically people do it afterwards. And so in order to make sure that her purchase is, she's gonna be able to use the land the way they're intended, it fits within that conditional use application.
All right, you had mentioned, you had jotted down the,
Yes. So we always say, and it's in your staff report on the third page, the conditional use permit for the kennel canine training facility shall only apply to the application considered at the May 16th, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. There shall be a limit to the number of dogs to 10 at any given time, no boarding of other outside animals, no additional signs identifying the facility. The building itself shall be soundproofed, no lighting in other than motion-activated security lights, which is what we heard in the testimony, and then the number of employees or volunteer help shall be limited to 3. I don't think we have to deal with parking. There's plenty of parking space. This is not going to be a commercial facility. People have house guests. You know, we don't accommodate. What I'm hearing is that anybody that might be on site, there's plenty of room to accommodate. There's a long driveway and ample parking area existing.
all right, I'm ready to take a motion.
Who's up for it?
You.
I'll attempt to. I make a motion that we move to approve docket OC 19014, May 16th, 2009, for property located at 7300 Oregon Creek Road, Pendleton. You may have to help me along through this, Larry, as we work on this. Make a motion to approve with the following conditions as we discussed previously. Up to 10 dogs to be held at the facility or no more than 10 dogs. No additional signage per the testimony of the applicant. No additional lighting to the property in regards to the kennel operation. Soundproofing efforts to be made per the applicant's testimony. Help me along, Larry. Am I going all right here?
Oh, you are, no boarding of,
You can just reference the ones that I said if you agree to them all. You don't have to repeat them. I mean, you're adding your own language, which is fine, but I said like on the lighting, no other lighting other than motion-activated security lights.
Okay.
Everybody can have that if you want. So I'll go over them again and make it easier for you if you want me to.
Thank you very much, because I'm stumbling
Okay,
here.
so the first one is the conditional use permit for the kennel/canine training facility shall only apply to the application considered at the May 16th, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The number of dogs shall be limited to 10 at any given time. There shall be no boarding of outside animals. There shall be no signs identifying the facility. The building shall be soundproofed, and then no lighting other than motion-activated security lights, and the number of employees or volunteer help shall be limited to 3. And I think you had said you agreed to those.
Yes.
And we heard that in your testimony.
based on the conditions that Jim laid out.
All right, so then I'm gonna loop back then. I'm gonna make a motion.
Go to the back of your staff report.
Right, there's a proposed
motions
motion.
To approve
Yep.
and deny.
This
Yeah,
one?
the very
That-
end of your staff report.
That's where I'm struggling.
It's a good thing Rob left the room. Now, this is good training, because
Well, to
Right here, Amy.
restrict Rob.
Thank you.
He's still doing his motion because he needs to.
Yes, we're still doing a motion.
We're struggling a little bit, sorry. You can't read it? Okay, all right. So here we go again. I'm going to make a motion to approve docket OC 14, May 16th, 2019. Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit because the proposed use is essential or desirable to the community and not in conflict with the elements, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan based on one or more of the following factors. Going back to what Mr. Urban said previously, utilizing those points as conditions of approval. Granting the conditional use permit will allow the proper integration into the community of a use specifically named in zoning regulations, so on and so forth. Is that sufficient? All right,
That's
thank you.
sufficient. All right, we have a motion.
Wait,
Second.
you got one more part you gotta add to it. Go down to,
That I've missed?
He's already, Jim read that one. That one's part of the,
oh, Jim read that one?
yeah, that one's in there.
Okay.
All right, so we've got a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. All right, we want to take, all right, somebody make a motion for
I
a
make a
short
motion that we take a break.
break? Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Break, mic's off.